October 13th, 2018. 7:15 a.m. The steady click of calculator keys echoed through the mahogany-paneled study of the Blackwood estate. Victoria Blackwood, CEO of a $300 million pharmaceutical empire, sat at her antique desk reviewing quarterly projections with methodical precision. Her silk nightgown, once cream-colored, now stained crimson, clung to her skin. Dried blood crusted beneath her manicured nails as she typed numbers into her computer. 20 feet away in the master bedroom lay the body of Alexander Mercer, her husband of 30 years, surrounded by a pool of blood, a letter opener jutting from his chest. According to relationship psychologists, 43% of Americans admit to keeping significant secrets from their long-term partners. But few secrets compare to what Alex had concealed from Victoria for 3 decades, a deception so profound it fractured her reality and ended in violence. How well do you truly know the person sharing your bed? The one who knows your passwords, your fears, your dreams? The shocking revelation that shattered Victoria's perception of her marriage forces us to question the nature of trust itself. Before we continue, if you appreciate deep dives into complex cases that challenge our understanding of identity and relationships, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to TrueCrime Hunter. Your support helps us bring you more stories that explore the psychological depths behind horrific acts. The case of Victoria Blackwood stands as a stark reminder that some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. What drove this accomplished, respected business titan to transform into a killer in one blood-soaked evening? What could possibly justify stabbing the person she'd built a life with? The answers lie in a 3-decade-long deception that began at a glittering charity gala and ended in a sterile hospital room where impossible truths came to light. But to understand how this power couple's perfect life ended in bloodshed, we need to go back to where it all began. 1968. A modest apartment in South Boston. Victoria Morgan, 18 and determined, opened her college acceptance letter with trembling hands. First in her family to attend university, she vowed to create something meaningful. 20 years later, that promise manifested as Blackwood Pharmaceuticals, a company she built from a single diabetes treatment patent into a global healthcare empire. By 1988, Victoria had transformed from that working-class teenager into a formidable executive. Her company developed cutting-edge medications that revolutionized chronic disease treatment. Business magazines featured her sharp business acumen and ruthless negotiation tactics. Yet despite professional triumph, her personal life remained empty until the Boston Children's Hospital benefit gala. That evening, across a crowded ballroom filled with Boston's elite, Victoria spotted Alexander Mercer. He stood apart from the typical finance bros and old money heirs who frequented such events. Slender, with refined features and thoughtful eyes, Alex captivated her with his quiet confidence. "He's fascinating," remarked Victoria's assistant. "Built his wealth managing international investments for exclusive clients. Very private, very selective." Their introduction came through mutual connections. Alex's knowledge of global markets impressed Victoria, but it was his attentiveness that won her over. He asked questions about her research while others only discussed her company's stock performance. Alex's background contained carefully constructed gaps. Born to wealthy parents in Connecticut, educated overseas, extensive travel throughout his 20s, all details shared with practiced precision that discouraged further inquiry. His natural charm deflected questions about family or childhood. Their courtship progressed with unusual speed. Within 6 months, they married in a private ceremony on Martha's Vineyard with only 12 guests. No family attended from either side. Victoria, consumed by expanding her pharmaceutical company, appreciated Alex's self-sufficiency and support. The arrangement proved mutually beneficial. Victoria provided financial resources and social access. Alex managed their personal investments and established the Blackwood-Mercer Foundation, which funded medical research. To outsiders, they exemplified the ideal power couple, her business genius paired with his financial expertise. Their home life followed a comfortable pattern. Separate bedrooms, for my insomnia, Alex explained, precisely scheduled intimacy, and a shared passion for modern art. They traveled extensively, collected rare wines, and hosted exclusive dinner parties where guests marveled at their apparent compatibility. They finish each other's sentences, noted a Wall Street Journal profile in 2008. 20 years together has created a partnership as profitable as it is loving. The reality proved more complex. Victoria worked 16-hour days. Alex maintained careful distance from cameras. They lived parallel lives that occasionally intersected at social functions where they performed practiced affection. Neither discussed having children, a mutual relief. But beneath the perfect marriage everyone admired lay a fundamental deception, one so profound that when finally exposed, it would transform devoted partnership into deadly rage. Before Victoria Blackwood met Alex Mercer, there was Amanda Pierce, born in 1960 in rural Georgia to deeply conservative parents. From earliest childhood, Amanda knew she was different. Not simply a tomboy, but a boy trapped in a girl's body. By 15, Amanda had already decided one day she would live as her true self. At 18, with $3,000 saved from summer jobs, Amanda left home forever. She cut her hair, bound her chest, and traveled north, shedding her identity with each mile. In Philadelphia, she obtained forged documents, a birth certificate, school records, and a social security card, all bearing the name Alexander Mercer. The transformation demanded meticulous attention to detail. Alex studied masculine speech patterns, mannerisms, and clothing choices. He received unofficial hormone treatments from a sympathetic doctor in New York's Greenwich Village. The treatments deepened his voice and altered fat distribution in his face. A specially constructed prosthetic helped complete the physical illusion when necessary. When Alex met Victoria in 1988, he had lived as a man for nearly a decade. His slender build became an asset in his fabricated history. A childhood respiratory condition stunted my growth, he would explain when questioned about his physique. Regular trips to a supposed specialist in Switzerland maintained the illusion of ongoing medical care. Their intimate relationship required calculated planning. Alex controlled when and how they were physical, always in dim lighting, with specific garments remaining in place. He deflected Victoria's occasional questions with practiced responses about trauma from his strict Connecticut upbringing. "I have intimacy issues from my boarding school days," he once told Victoria when she questioned his hesitancy. The partial truth, that he had experienced trauma, just not the kind he described, made the lie believable. The couple's childlessness served as both convenience and necessity. Alex fabricated a story about mumps-induced infertility during adolescence. Victoria, focused on building her pharmaceutical empire, felt relieved rather than disappointed. Their family dynamic remained uncomplicated, just as they preferred. Alex created detailed backgrounds for non-existent relatives. His parents had died in a boating accident off the coast of Greece. His medical records indicated allergies and conditions that explained his regular medication regimen and private medical appointments. He manufactured childhood anecdotes that explained his knowledge gaps and avoided situations that might expose him. For 30 years, Alex maintained this elaborate construction through calculated behaviors. Separate bathrooms and bedrooms, ostensibly for Victoria's comfort, private dressing rooms with strict boundaries, control over all medical appointments and documentation, strategic business trips during times when detection risk increased, a network of paid confidants who reinforced his backstory. The psychological toll proved immense. Alex lived in constant fear of discovery, maintaining a mental catalog of every lie told and every story shared. His authentic self remained locked away, accessible only in private journals hidden within a Swiss bank vault. Consider maintaining a deception so convincing that even your spouse of 30 years never suspects the truth. The vigilance required, the constant self-editing, the perpetual fear of exposure that never subsides, not even for a moment. Have you ever discovered a shocking secret about someone close to you? How did it change your perception of that person and your shared history? Comment below about a time someone's hidden truth altered your relationship. How did you respond when the foundation of trust cracked beneath your feet? July 14th, 2018. The Blackwood Summer Estate in Southampton pulsed with activity as staff prepared for that evening's charity fundraiser. Victoria spent the morning on conference calls while Alex supervised the catering arrangements. At precisely 11:43 a.m., a scream echoed from the guest bathroom. Victoria rushed in to find Alex collapsed on the marble floor, clutching his abdomen, face contorted in pain. "Something's wrong," Alex gasped. "Call Dr. Peters." Their private physician wasn't available. With Alex's condition deteriorating rapidly, Victoria had her security team rush him to Southampton Hospital's emergency department. She paced the waiting room for 3 hours while doctors performed diagnostic tests. Dr. Natasha Reynolds, the attending physician, eventually approached Victoria with a peculiar expression, concern mixed with professional confusion. "Mrs. Blackwood, we've stabilized your husband. The abdominal pain was caused by an ovarian cyst that ruptured." Victoria stared blankly. "That's impossible. My husband doesn't have ovaries." Dr. Reynolds hesitated. "The CT scan and ultrasound are conclusive. Your husband has female reproductive organs. We found no evidence of male anatomy." Victoria laughed reflexively. "There's been a mix-up with another patient's results." "We ran the tests twice," Dr. Reynolds explained, pulling up the imaging on her tablet. "These scans are definitely of Alexander Mercer." Victoria's mind rejected the information. 30 years of intimacy flashed before her, always in darkness, always controlled by Alex, always with boundaries she'd respected without question. "There must be some medical anomaly," Victoria insisted. "A rare condition." "What we're seeing isn't a medical anomaly," Dr. Reynolds replied gently. "Your husband was born female." Victoria requested privacy with Alex, who remained sedated in recovery. She sat beside his bed for hours, examining his sleeping face, the face she thought she knew better than her own. Now it seemed to belong to a stranger. When Alex finally regained consciousness, Victoria stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed. "Who are you?" she demanded. Alex's eyes widened with comprehension and fear. "Vic, I can explain." "Explain what? That for 30 years you've lied about who you are? That our entire marriage is built on deception?" Alex attempted to reach for her hand. Victoria recoiled. "My name was Amanda Pierce," Alex whispered. "I was born in Georgia, not Connecticut. Everything else about me, who I am inside, how I feel about you, that's all real." "Real?" Victoria's voice rose. "You fabricated your entire identity." Over the next hour, Alex revealed his truth. Growing up in a strictly religious household where his identity was condemned, escaping at 18, creating a new life as Alexander Mercer, and meeting Victoria when his male identity was already firmly established. "I planned to tell you when we first became serious," Alex explained, "but I was terrified of losing you. Then months passed, then years." Victoria left the hospital room without responding. For the remainder of Alex's 3-day hospital stay, she communicated only through hospital staff and their housekeeper, Rosalind. Upon Alex's return to their Southampton home, Victoria had already reorganized the household. Alex would stay in the guest house until further notice. Their staff received instructions not to discuss the situation. Victoria retreated to her study, methodically examining 3 decades of life with a person who suddenly seemed fictional. She pulled financial records, medical documents, and travel itineraries. She hired private investigators to trace Amanda Pierce's existence from Georgia to Philadelphia, documenting the transformation into Alexander Mercer. Each discovery compounded her rage. The Swiss medical treatments were hormone therapy appointments. The childhood photos Alex had shared were purchased from a photographer's estate sale. Even Alex's signature cologne had been specially formulated to mask chemical indicators of biological sex. Victoria's emotional state fluctuated wildly, from rage to grief to humiliation. How many people knew? Had they laughed at her ignorance? Had Alex ever truly loved her? Or was she merely convenient cover for his fabricated identity? Most disturbing were the journals Victoria discovered in Alex's private safe. Decades of entries documenting the maintenance of his deception, including detailed notes about managing Victoria's perceptions. Through August and September of 2018, Victoria systematically deconstructed the man she had married, determined to find the final piece of the puzzle. That missing element arrived in an unexpected form, a series of letters from someone named Thomas Winters. Victoria's meticulous mind, once focused on pharmaceutical acquisitions and market expansion, now channeled its precision toward a singular purpose: uncovering every aspect of Alex's fabricated existence. Her home office transformed into an investigation headquarters, walls covered with timelines, maps tracking Amanda Pierce's journey to becoming Alexander Mercer, and photographs from various stages of his life. Rosalind, their housekeeper of 15 years, watched with growing concern as Victoria barely ate or slept. "Mrs. Blackwood hasn't left that room in 3 days," she confided to the groundskeeper. "She only asks for coffee and whiskey." On October 3rd, while examining Alex's financial records, Victoria discovered monthly wire transfers to someone named Thomas Winters, dating back 27 years. The transactions originated from an offshore account Victoria had never known existed. Each transfer precisely $5,000, totaling nearly $1.7 million over the decades. Victoria hired additional private investigators to locate this mysterious recipient. They traced Thomas Winters to a modest apartment in Portland, Oregon. Surveillance photos showed a man in his 50s with unmistakable facial features resembling Alex's. The revelation struck Victoria like physical blow. Alex had family. After decades of claiming to be alone in the world, another lie. Victoria confronted Alex on October 12th, the night that would end their marriage in blood. She arrived at the guest house clutching a folder of evidence, including photos of Thomas Winters. "Who is he?" Victoria demanded, throwing the surveillance photos onto the coffee table. Alex's face drained of color. "Where did you get these?" 27 years of payments, nearly $2 million, all while telling me you had no family." Alex hesitated before answering. "Thomas is my brother." "You don't have a brother. You told me you were an only child." "Alexander Mercer was an only child," Alex replied quietly. "Amanda Pierce had a younger brother named Thomas." The final piece of the deception crashed into place. Not only had Alex hidden his identity, but he'd concealed an entire family connection, a blood relative who knew everything while Victoria remained ignorant. "He was 16 when I left Georgia," Alex explained. "Our parents were abusive. I promised to send for him when I established myself, but by then I was deep into creating Alex Mercer. I couldn't risk exposure, so I supported him financially instead." Victoria returned to the main house without another word. In her study, she poured 3 fingers of 30-year-old Macallan, a wedding anniversary gift from Alex. The bitter irony wasn't lost on her as she drained glass after glass. Her thoughts churned with every moment of their marriage, recontextualizing each memory through the lens of deception. The fertility discussions, the medical appointments she wasn't allowed to attend, the intimacy always controlled by Alex. 3 decades of calculated manipulation. At 11:42 p.m., alcohol flooding her system and rage clouding her judgment, Victoria's gaze fell on the antique letter opener on her desk, a silver blade with an ornate handle, another gift from Alex. She turned it over in her hands, feeling its weight and balance. Victoria moved through the darkened house toward the guest quarters, letter opener clutched in her right hand. What would you do if everything you believed about your marriage was a lie? If 30 years of memories were suddenly rendered false? If the person you trusted most had methodically deceived you about something so fundamental as their very identity? The path from betrayal to violence isn't as long as we might like to believe. For Victoria Blackwood, it was exactly 178 steps from her study to Alex's bedroom door. 7:15 a.m., October 13th. Rosalind Montenegro followed her normal morning routine, entering the guest house to deliver Alex's preferred breakfast, black coffee and steel-cut oatmeal with sliced almonds. She knocked twice, received no response, and used her key to enter. The bedroom door stood ajar, unusual for the meticulously private Alex. Rosalind called his name softly before pushing the door open. The scene stopped her cold. Alexander Mercer lay motionless on the bed, blood soaked through the Egyptian cotton sheets. Multiple wounds punctured his chest, the letter opener still protruding from the final fatal insertion point. Rosalind's scream echoed through the property. Security personnel rushed to the guest house while the head of household security called emergency services. When asked about Mrs. Blackwood's whereabouts, Rosalind pointed toward the main house. Detective Manuel Ortiz found Victoria exactly as described in the opening of this story, seated at her antique desk, blood-soaked nightgown clinging to her skin, calmly reviewing quarterly projections on her laptop. "Mrs. Blackwood," Detective Ortiz said, "I need to ask about your husband." Victoria looked up, expression neutral. "Former husband," she corrected. "He died during the night." "How did that happen?" "I killed him," she stated flatly. "He wasn't who he claimed to be." Victoria offered no resistance during her arrest. News helicopters circled the Blackwood estate as police escorted the pharmaceutical titan, handcuffed and still wearing her bloodied nightgown, to a waiting squad car. By noon, every major network broadcast her arrest. Blackwood pharmaceutical stock plummeted 31% in a single trading day. The media coverage proved relentless. Headlines trumpeted the sensational elements. CEO stabs husband after 30-year gender deception, and billionaire Blackwood, from boardroom to prison cell. Tabloids published unflattering photos of Victoria in custody alongside glamorous shots from charity events, creating a before and after narrative of her spectacular fall. The trial began in March 2019. Prosecutors portrayed Victoria as a calculating killer who murdered Alex for damaging her pride and reputation. Mrs. Blackwood didn't kill out of passion, the DA argued. She killed because she couldn't control the narrative about her marriage. The defense team, led by high-profile attorney Michaela Washington, built their case around temporary insanity. 3 decades of calculated deception shattered Mrs. Blackwood's psychological well-being, Washington told jurors. The discovery that her husband had hidden his biological sex, plus the revelation of a secret brother, created a profound dissociative break. After 11 days of testimony and 36 hours of deliberation, the jury returned their verdict, guilty of second-degree murder. The judge sentenced Victoria to 18 years at Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. As Victoria was led from the courtroom, her face remained expressionless, the same detached calm she'd displayed since the morning of the murder. Did Victoria Blackwood receive a fair sentence for killing her husband? Hit like if you believe 18 years was appropriate, or comment if you think the extraordinary circumstances warranted a different outcome. Should decades of deception mitigate the severity of her crime, or does nothing justify taking another person's life? Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, New York's maximum security women's prison, seems an unlikely place for innovative education. Yet, in its concrete walls, Victoria Blackwood found a new purpose. Within 18 months of her incarceration, she established Beyond Barriers, a business education program for inmates preparing for release. "I built a pharmaceutical empire from nothing," Victoria told the prison board. "I can teach others to build legitimate businesses despite their pasts." The program now boasts an 83% success rate for graduates who establish legal employment post-release. Victoria leads classes on business fundamentals, investment strategies, and financial literacy, applying her corporate expertise to help women escape cycles of poverty and crime. Meanwhile, Blackwood Pharmaceuticals weathered its initial stock collapse. The board quickly appointed COO Mariana Reyes as interim CEO, who stabilized the company through transparent leadership and strategic refocusing on breakthrough medications. By 2022, the company had recovered its market position, though Victoria's ownership stake remains in a blind trust managed by her attorneys. The case sparked complex conversations across multiple domains. Legal scholars debate the intersection of deception and consent in intimate relationships. Gender identity advocates emphasize that Alex's crime wasn't his gender identity, but his deliberate deception about fundamental aspects of his life. Relationship counselors point to the case as an extreme example of how secrets corrode trust. Dr. Kimberly Washington, forensic psychologist and expert witness at Victoria's trial, notes, "Long-term deception creates a psychological phenomenon called reality disruption, where the deceived person's entire worldview collapses. Their history, memories, and identity, all constructed partly through their relationship, suddenly become questionable. This cognitive dissonance can trigger extreme responses as the brain struggles to reconcile contradictory information." The case also highlighted warning signs of deception that might appear in less extreme relationships. Excessive privacy about specific life areas. Inconsistencies in personal history. Controlled intimacy with rigid boundaries, never open for discussion. Missing documentation or records from their past. Resistance to meeting family or childhood connections. Elaborate explanations for simple questions. Most importantly, the case reveals how compartmentalization enables deception. Alex created physical separation, separate bedrooms, controlled information flow, managing all medical appointments, and established boundaries that Victoria never questioned out of respect. Relationship therapist Dr. Marcus Tanner suggests, "Healthy relationships require transparency about fundamental aspects of identity. While everyone deserves privacy, core truths about who you are shouldn't remain hidden from life partners. The line between privacy and deception lies in whether the information would materially affect someone's consent to the relationship." Victoria's case offers a cautionary lesson about trust and verification, not in the sense of investigating your partner, but in recognizing when emotional barriers serve as protective shields rather than healthy boundaries. When respect for privacy transforms into willful ignorance, relationships become vulnerable to devastating revelations. Now serving her 9th year at Bedford Hills, Victoria recently gave her first prison interview. "I don't regret building my company. I don't regret my drive or ambition. I regret placing such complete trust in someone without demanding equal vulnerability in return." The tragic ending of the Blackwood-Mercer marriage serves as a sobering reminder that even the most seemingly perfect relationships may harbor fundamental disconnections, and that unprocessed betrayal can lead to unimaginable consequences. For more true crime stories that deliver powerful insights about human psychology and relationships, subscribe to True Crime Hunter and hit the notification bell. Every case we examine offers lessons that might help you recognize warning signs in your own relationships before they reach a breaking point. Trust forms the foundation of every relationship. When that foundation crumbles, it can transform even the most controlled, successful individuals into unrecognizable versions of themselves. Victoria and Alex's story reveals how 3 decades of calculated deception created the perfect conditions for tragedy, where truth became the ultimate casualty, followed closely by human life. We build our identities partially through the eyes of those we love. When those reflections prove false, the resulting void can fill with rage, confusion, and sometimes violence. Victoria's journey from corporate titan to prisoner demonstrates how quickly the veneer of civilization can crack when our core beliefs about reality shatter. Next week on True Crime Hunter, the pastor's wife who vanished. How a beloved community leader disappeared after Sunday service, and the shocking discovery made in her husband's church basement 3 years later. What would you have done in Victoria's position upon learning your spouse of 30 years had hidden their biological sex? Would you seek understanding, revenge, or something else entirely? Let me know in the comments below.